There is a world where, of course, you want to hear what Shaquille O'Neal's saying. You want to hear what the Nick Wrights of the world are saying. But sometimes you kind of want to hear what the kid from Chicago is saying about your favorite player. And that is a value that I feel like I bring.
Welcome back to The Deal. I'm Jason Kelly alongside Alex Rodriguez. So psyched to have with us Kenny Beecham. You know, this is a voice, Alex, that is so important to growing the game of basketball, something you and I think about all the time. Kenny, you're joining us from Chicago. Great to be with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Growing the game is something that's been on my mind for, I don't know, as long as I've been doing content. So I'm happy that you said that because that's one of my main goals as a creator.
So let's talk about that. How do you get into this? Like, do I have it right? You were literally like working at a vitamin store and, you know, just making ends meet, doing your thing, but also dabbling on YouTube. But give us the origin story. Give us the Kenny origin story here.
Yeah, so it actually starts way before that. I was 13 years old and I asked my dad for this thing called the Dazzle. And as someone that grew up watching a bunch of other content creators, the Dazzle is the thing that you hook into your Xbox on one end, the TV on the other end, and then your computer. And that's how you record a gameplay back in the day. And I just, saw other YouTubers that were really cool. And I was like, oh, I can replicate that. And I did it for a very long time. Obviously not as a job. I'm 13 and I'm just doing it for fun. And eventually you have to start thinking about jobs. So once I left high school and started college, I was still doing YouTube. It was doing okay, but didn't even have a paycheck at that point. So if you think about it, I'm doing YouTube for like 4 years just for the love of the game. And I'm at the vitamin shop, I'm going through all of this training in the back of my mind. Every shift, I'm like, what type of content can I create when I get home? So I'm kind of doing like this dual, 8 hours here, then 8 hours at home on the content.
Oh, man.
And then there was one time where I got a check from YouTube, which is like a monthly check, that was the exact same amount of money as the amount of money I was making at the vitamin shop. And for me, it wasn't a ton of money, right? Because I'm still a college student, but I'm like, oh, okay, this is the start of something. And my dad had one rule, as long as I lived with him, is like, if you're living here, you're going to stay in school. It's in community college, cool. And I sat him down once and like put together a full PowerPoint presentation, because one thing my dad has drilled into the brains of me and all my siblings, that hard work and school are the two things that matter the most to him. So I had to present to him why I want to quit my vitamin shop job in order to create content full time. And he was very skeptical. He's like, it's really just one paycheck of your month paycheck from YouTube is equivalent to your 2-week check here. So really the math is not mathing.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? But eventually he agreed completely. And the timing was just great. Honestly, I always say that the timing is the most important part of my ascension. I had to be ready for that timing and take advantage of that timing. But it was basically right when the boom happened, the ad boom in YouTube and so many different content creators coming out.
Pardon me. Tell me what year
this has to be 2017. This is 2017. And it started to take off. Like by that second YouTube check, I'm now tripling what I was making at the vitamin shop. So the timing was just perfect. And, I kept my word to my dad. I finished with my associate's degree in community college, but I did not go back to finish that bachelor's. Because the YouTube stuff was doing so well that I was like, I'm going to take a semester off, which is something a lot of college kids tell themselves. And I'm one of those college kids that said that and then never really went back because the YouTube thing was becoming a full-time gig. So it's been truly a blessing. It's been a lot of work, but like I wouldn't want any other job, any other profession. This is exactly where I want to be in life.
So Kenny, when you think about, you're born and raised in Chicago. I'm sure your pop's Bulls fan like you, probably loved Michael Jordan and that team.
Yep.
Okay. As you think about the trajectory of your career starting when you were 13, who were some of your role models that you said, one day I want to be like X?
So I fell in love with basketball in like 2002, 2003. At that point, I'm 7, 8 years old. And everybody wants to be an athlete when they grow up, right? You play baseball, football, basketball. That was my main three. I want to grow up and I want to be like Allen Iverson. Obviously, that didn't materialize, but he was definitely the athlete icon that I had. And I got to give a lot of praise to my dad, honestly. Like my dad was a truck driver if I'm 29, he was a truck driver for 28 years. The moment he found out my mom was pregnant, he said, hey, I need a real profession. So I watched him leave for work at midnight and come home after I did from school, just from truck driving, and was present all the time as a parent, never missed a ball game, never missed a basketball game. So he was really my true icon, right? I wanted to work as hard as my dad, and I wanted to make him happy. And I mean, he texts me almost on a daily of how happy he is of me. So I think I'm winning. I think I'm winning on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's talk about AI for a second. So I had the good fortune of going to Georgetown at the same time Allen was
Okay,
there.
cool.
Here we go.
And I have to say, I mean, that's a flex in a way. I mean, I don't know. I just happened to be there, and then he showed up and obviously becomes an iconic force. But I think what strikes me as so interesting about you choosing him is he changed the culture of basketball.
Mhm.
And like he changed the culture of what it meant to be a professional athlete, especially in the NBA. And I think there's a real argument that the culture of basketball today, even the way that a lot of players, whether it is LeBron, whether it was Kobe, whether it is Anthony Edwards, to use an example very close to home for Alex, like they all are standing on the shoulders of AI. Do you agree with that? And what is it about basketball culture that sort of allows you to create the sorts of shows that you're creating? Because it feels like that's very much the conversation you're in.
Yeah, 100%. I think the Allen Iverson thing for me was he looked like me. And I think that mattered a lot. And obviously, a lot of the league looks like me, but the way he was dressing back then, that was what I looked out the window and saw here in Chicago. So I'm like, oh my God, he's from, the inner city, and he can raise an MVP trophy one day. And like that really resonated with me. And he really did, like you said, change the culture of basketball. And one thing that we're trying to do with our company is do something very similar. Maybe not to the same extent as Allen Iverson, right? Because we're talking about when it comes to true culture changes in basketball, trying to change the culture around the way it's viewed from the fan base. But I felt like growing up, I didn't see a ton of negativity around the sport, around our stars and things like that. And when we came up with the idea of Enjoy Basketball as a company, we wanted to change the culture. We wanted to look at our star players. And obviously, athletes are going to make mistakes, and you have to point out those mistakes when necessary. But at the end of the day, it's a kids game that we all really love. And I just wanted to try to use my audience to push that on a daily to nightly basis. So like we have games where sometimes our star players don't have the greatest shooting night, but like I did watch what he did on the defensive side of the ball. And I think we should praise those type of things. So we're just trying to be forefront and changing the way we think and all of those things and appreciating the players.
So, Kenny, for our audience, who's a very smart, sophisticated business audience, really high level, what is it exactly that you do on YouTube? And the second question is, as you see it, what is the value proposition to not only the viewer, but the customer?
So on YouTube, I do a bunch of different things. I think it started off as a gaming thing, and I still do some of the gaming stuff, but I try to look at what I'm producing on YouTube or the shows that were NBC as I am I would say average NBA fan that cares a ton, right? So when you turn on, these different places with the ESPNs of the world, the Fox Sports of the world, a lot of those people are either former players or people that are journalists or went to school for broadcasting. And I kind of just look at myself as, hey, I'm just a guy. Like if you look at the office that I watch my games in, you would see I'm just a guy with 3 monitors that care about basketball. And I think I got a point in the market where there is a world where, of course, you want to hear what Shaquille O'Neal is saying. You want to hear what the Nick Wrights of the world are saying. But sometimes you kind of want to hear what the kid from Chicago is saying about your favorite player. And that is a value that I feel like I bring. A lot of times I kind of explain it the voice of the casual fan, even if I like maybe watch the game more than a casual fan. But I like to think that I look at the game that way where it's consumable for everybody. Whether you're a guy that loves great X's and O's, I can provide some of that. Or if you're a guy that doesn't watch basketball but want to keep up with the sport, I'm a guy that can provide the type of content for you as well. So I like to think that I'm like a Jaden McDaniels of covering all of the different things for the NBA.
I like it.
I like it. I like that a lot. So the player's voice versus the casual fan's voice, I really like that. How does that play into the shows you're developing? Take us inside that process.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, when we started Enjoy, or what turned into Enjoy, I was, again, just a YouTuber, and something had happened in the YouTube space called the adpocalypse, where one of the biggest YouTubers on the platform did some less than ideal things, and a bunch of big brands turned away from advertising on YouTube. So I would get, let's say, the same amount of views as I did the previous month, and the paycheck would be 1/3 of it. And I was like, oh my God, that's a little rough. I just moved out, so I got to try to diversify my portfolio and not just be a YouTuber. And the way I thought about it is I still want to play in this world of basketball. So what's next outside of just creating individual content? What if I created a podcast?
Yeah.
Pretty interesting thing. We have a group chat, me and the guys that I went to school with. We all love the game equally. What if we just put some microphones in front of each other and just riffed about the sport? And that turned into the inception of Enjoy Basketball, where me, Mike, Derek, and Pierre on, I guess at this point, because of our new partnership, 5 times a week are talking about the games that we just watched the previous night. So originally, I just wanted to make sure that if this adpocalypse thing was real, I had a backup plan, right? That was the whole thing. And then eventually the ads came back, and now I got 2 things in my portfolio. Oh, that's pretty interesting. And I partnered up with Cody and Cole Hawk, who are the duo behind Up North Management. I was looking for a management group. The YouTube channel had taken off from 100,000 subscribers to 800,000 subscribers in a couple months. I'm getting emails from brands, from people that want to partner. I have no idea what I'm doing here. And I took so many different interviews to try to figure out who I want to partner with. And the thing that made them different than some of the other people that I interviewed is that they had a full 5-year plan about this is what we can do now, which is just accept some ad money to do some deals here, but we want to do something bigger. And that bigger is Enjoy Basketball, right? It started off, again, just a single show and a newsletter. Then it turned into merch. Then it turned into a podcast network where we have 4 shows under. Then it turned into social media where now we have 2 social media shows. So, again, the right place, right time plays a big part, but teaming up with the right people plays an equal part, in my opinion.
I love what you said here. I wrote it down. The voice of the casual fan, right? I love that. And you're right. People do want to know what that young, smart kid from the inner city of Chicago, what is he talking about? Because ultimately, that's what AI was. You talked about culture, and I love that. But let's just say, hypothetically, play along here. If I made you chief content officer or chief marketing officer for the Timberwolves and the Lynx, what are some of the handful of things you'll be thinking about to create value for both teams? Start maybe with the Lynx and then go to the Wolves.
I mean, I think that the city in itself has 2 of the biggest stars in each of the leagues, right? And I think that's where we start off with. Between Nafisa Collier and Anthony Edwards, you have legit 2 MVP candidates in the city of Minnesota. And I would try to leverage that as much as possible, right? Anthony Edwards is amazing in front of the camera. That's one of the reasons why he is a fan favorite. And Nafisa has been a voice of the people. If you think about, the finals from a few years ago, she wasn't afraid to kind of say the things that she believed in. Even on a smaller scale, as someone that has talked to a guy like Nas Reed, there's so much personality within that locker room. And I think the way you can bring value is to have the casual fan recognize that personality, because we all can see stats. We know that Anthony Edwards is averaging 27.5 points per game. That's cool. But Anthony Edwards, the person, is where you fall in love with him as a player. Same thing with Allen Iverson. I knew he was averaging whatever many points, but it's when we got to the interviews. It's the on-court swag. And I think that is where you start and you bridge off of that.
Nice.
And so it's interesting too, Kenny, sort of building on some of the things you're saying, and as you describe sort of the broad portfolio of Enjoy Basketball, obviously a key moment comes when you do this partnership, and this was just late last year with NBC. And so I think what's so fascinating, and Alex and I talk about this on the show so much, is this sort of soup of media brands and sort of distribution that we're all living in, whether it's even, for us on this show, we think about, all the different platforms. You're thinking about YouTube, you're thinking about NBC, you're thinking about social media. Walk us through the NBC deal. I know you'd been doing some work with ESPN. How does this all come about, and how does it take shape?
Yeah, so I want to give a lot of love to the team over at House of Highlights, because they were the ones that really took a chance on me and the rest of the guys. I sent the cold email, something I don't know if I've done since then, to the general manager of House of Highlights. I had heard on a podcast, Omar Raja, who was the creator of House of Highlights, went on to JJ Redick's podcast actually and said, hey, we're about to branch into YouTube. And at that point, they were just a social media platform. And I said, hey, I'm a YouTuber with so-and-so amount of subscribers. We have a show. And they gave us a small deal to kind of figure some things out. And we were able to build off that to go to Omaha Productions / ESPN, where we had a show 2 times a week. And then we branched off to go to NBC. And though I have so much love for our previous partners, the NBC one is the one that feels so much like home, because again, growing up, NBC is the place for basketball, right? Between, the theme songs and all the graphics packages. I mean, this is exactly where I wanted to be, right? So when we took every interview we could get when our contract was up with Omaha. Crazy story. I fly into Connecticut to meet with the team over at NBC. As nervous as can be. I'm not a sweaty guy, but that day, sweatiest day of my life, right? So I'm getting there and I'm like, okay. And I thought things went great. So I'm like, okay, quick turnaround. My flight is in a few hours. I get to the airport. My flight is completely canceled. And now I have to stay in New York City for an extra day. And they couldn't get me on another flight for 4 days. Now
Oh
I
my
have a wife and 2
God.
kids at home, so I can't stay in New York for an extra 4 days. So I rent a car and I drive from New York City to Chicago. And when I get that rental car, I text my manager, say, this is going to be one hell of a story once we sign with NBC. And the entire time I'm driving the 11 hours home, I'm just thinking about all the things that I can do if this partnership worked. And so far through, well, let's see, 6 months of working together, some of those things I was thinking about in that car ride home has come to fruition. I now have my own individual show on the network along with the show that I thought they were initially interested in. So the one thing that I really appreciated from it, because this is their first year having rights back, is it was a blank slate.
Yeah.
Right? When we were with ESPN, it was amazing, but you know the pecking order in ESPN. You know who the top dogs are. In order to get up there, it's going to be really tough. But with NBC, they were like, hey, man, we value you as a creator. We value you as a voice. And you're kind of like a rocket ship. We don't have to stop anywhere just because we have so-and-so else on the roster. So they've been perfect. And yeah, we're just trying to fulfill our duties and make sure that they're getting the value that they initially thought. And hopefully that is the case and we can keep going for forever, honestly.
I mean, it is interesting, that moment when we all heard this idea of like, da na 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 na. I mean, it's like, worlder than you are, Kenny. But like for us, like that was such a major moment in our, I think, almost like parasocial relationship with the NBA, because part of it obviously was Michael and Barkley and everybody else who was playing in those moments, and obviously later AI and LeBron and others. But like that, the sort of cultural context of NBC sort of coming back in, but coming back in, as you say, in a way where it's like, all right, it's a different world. And obviously getting into business with you is a big moment. I'm not glazing you. I'm more just saying like this idea of, did you see that I used that correctly, Alex?
Yeah, no, that was great.
I'm watching it. I'm
I
going to
mean,
say or next.
I mean, my 20-something-year-old boys are going to be so impressed that I just used that. And then they're going to be cringing that I then bragged about using it correctly. But, it's fine. But, this idea that it was an interesting reset for them, and then to take advantage of the fact that there are creators out there who are doing this. What are the things you said to NBC that you think resonated in terms of like, listen, we have this blank slate. Here's what we can do differently.
Yeah, I think that the thing that, when we put together the deck and we made our pitch, the one thing we were really adamant about expressing to them is that we have figured out social media, right? They've been out of the game as far as basketball goes for quite some time. Social media just wasn't a thing when their rights ended. So,
yeah. And
I'm sure they could outsource that and find some, a team that could do it independently, but you can also bring us in. And here's some examples of some TikTok shows that we've developed. And the one that came to mind, because it was the only one that we had under the umbrella, was a show called Wag Talk, which is hosted by Maddie, who's a part of our team, with wives and girlfriends of NBA players. There's a market where people want to hear what they think. And
hell yeah, there is.
Yeah, so she took advantage of that. And it was like, when Maddie pitched it to me initially, I was like, oh, that's an interesting thing. Let's green light it. But, back in my mind, I'm like, let's see. I mean, the first episode had like 5 million views on TikTok.
Oh,
like,
my
okay,
God.
Wow.
She got this. And since then, because it has continued to grow, some names that feel like we weren't able to get, she's got. Like Aja Wilson and Bam Adebayo did an independent interview with her on our network. That's insane. Like we could have never expected that a year ago when it launched. So we really brought in that. And honestly speaking, the next thing that we brought up was all of the PR pieces that have been written about me. All the different people in sports. Like Stephen A. Smith said, I was the next face of NBA Sports. Is like, hey, you should sign that guy then. Stephen A. Smith just said that,
Yeah,
so those were kind of our pitches. And again, I'm sweaty.
That's pretty good pitch. It's pretty good pitch.
It worked. But no, to your initial point about the nostalgia of it, because the 90s were my city's year as far as basketball.
Oh yeah.
I've always had a soft spot for NBC for that reason alone. I was born in 96, so I wasn't around to really see the championships, but my dad is a diehard Bulls fan. So growing up, we had the VHS tapes. So I've heard 100 times, 100,000 times a year, it felt like. So even the set that you're seeing is built around vintage basketball, other than this LeBron, but like Larry Bird Wheatie boxes, Tiger Woods, like it goes on and on. So I've always had a thing for nostalgia. And I think NBC has blended that well, where they still give us the hits and the theme song, but they have elevated it to match what 2026 is asking from the consumer.
So, Kenny, this is a business podcast, so let's get into the business a little bit. When you think about your North Star, 3, 5, 10 years, where do you want to be? Have you raised capital? How do you 3 to 5x your revenue? How do you 10x your audience?
Yeah, for us at least, because we are a media company, what comes first is that, would you say 2xing, 3xing the audience, right? Because our success is directly correlated with the amount of views that we're getting per episode. I think if I had to put it without knowing what it is off the top of my head, I would say 70% of what we're doing in content-wise is YouTube, and then 30% would be, between Spotify and podcasting networks and TikToks and stuff. So, YouTube is a place that we know very well, and the idea for us is continue to grow on that end, right? Optimizing our thumbnails, our titles, using SEO very successfully to continue to grow the YouTube channels. And considering we just started the YouTube channel a few months ago, I think we're doing a decent enough job, and that is probably the one that directly correlates with what happens next within our company. And I have some really good business owners. I always tell people I'm a creator first. The business stuff is still working for me. Like it's still a work in progress for me. Where I'm in these meetings and I'm learning, I'm taking notes. So it's still a lot to figure out personally. I like to kind of take it a day at a time when it comes to the content and stuff. And I think that has worked very well. But in the business world, as you know, you kind of need that 3-year plan. You kind of need that 5-year plan. So for us, the number one thing on our docket is to renew with NBC when this contract is up, but also expand that deal where we are their leading production company. Similarly to what Omaha Productions is for ESPN, right?
Yeah.
When we were with Omaha, we were directly with ESPN through them. And they produce, the Manning Cast and then our show. And then they also produce the Places series that exist on ESPN. For us as a production company, that's the place where we want to be for NBC. We want to be able to script a show where I don't have to be front facing or nobody on our team has to be front facing, but we can produce that for NBC to exist on Peacock or to exist on any other channel. And I think that's the number one thing for us as far as investors and things of that nature. I'm not sure just yet. I mean, we've had the conversations, obviously, with different people, but we're so early on. I like to think, the company as a podcast studio just started 22 months ago.
Yeah.
Not even a full 2 years. So still TBD on that one.
And Ken, a quick follow-up. Again, we can always talk a little business. I'd love to learn more about digital and social because I'm a novice. Like Jason said, we're a bit older. But do you look at Bill Simmons, the Zach Lowe's of the world as people you admire, people you want to be like, or maybe a hybrid of what you're doing and what they're doing?
Absolutely. Bill Simmons, for sure, has been a model that we've talked about 1,000 different times within the company. As someone that, of course, was a blogger and writer to ESPN to eventually leaving and building what he has built over at Spotify, we would be kind of crazy not to think about all his success and trying to replicate that as like me being the Bill, if you will, and then finding like one thing that The Ringer has done extremely well as they've gone through sports and media is finding the right talent. And I think that's the biggest part of it all. And I like to do the talent scouting thing. We're not in a place where we can bring on, the Zach Lowe's of the world like they just did this season. But it is, I would say what Bill has done is the blueprint, if you will, at least part of the blueprint as an independent guy that was able to turn The Ringer into what it is today.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to wrap this up with some rapid fire. This is going to be fun because this is going to get into your real expertise. So here we go. So it's just a few questions here. I'll start and then Alex will pick up. Who's the best player in the NBA?
Currently, the best player in the NBA is Nikola Jokic.
All right. Highlights or the whole game? What do you prefer?
Whole game. Oh, man. I don't know if I watch any highlights. I got to be there. I gotta feel all 48 minutes.
Okay.
Who is your dream podcast guest?
Chris Paul has been my favorite player of all time. I've been lucky enough to have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Derrick Rose, some guys that I also love. Chris Paul's the one that I haven't even come close to interviewing. So I would love to have Chris Paul on the show one day.
CP3 is the best. He's such a good dude, and what a businessman he's been. And now maybe he'll turn up on our show before too long. And we'll put in, you put in a good word for us. We'll put in a good word for you. How's that?
Sound like a deal.
We'll crosswalk that one. What's your dream hosting gig?
Oh, so when I was growing up, I really thought I was gonna do like late night television, and I do not have the comedic chops to do that. Honestly, what I'm doing right now to an elevated scale with a bigger audience is exactly what I would love to do. So I wouldn't change anything other than like getting more ears to listen, more eyes on the show. That's all.
All right. So most exciting NBA storyline heading into the playoffs.
Most exciting storyline. It has to be the Celtics and Tatum's return. Right? It felt for me that the Eastern Conference was open between Detroit and New York and Cleveland, and the Celtics were still great, but now that Tatum is back and looking at, like, let's say 75% of what Tatum was a year before he got injured, that opens up the Eastern Conference even more, where, like, it's been 2 games, but I'm almost saying that they're my favorite to win the conference. So that has to be it. But I'm not just saying this because Alex is here, but, you know, I would love to see Ayo get some postseason minutes and do some good things there. That's my guy.
Former Bull, current Wolf. All right, what team do you want to see win a championship more than any?
Other than the Bulls, because I mean it's been a long time now. 27 years, a long time.
Bulls is a good answer. What about other than the Bulls? Because we knew you were going to say that.
Other than the Bulls, it would. I have a love for the Indiana Pacers, which may not make sense because they're division rival, if you will.
Yeah.
But I've always had love for Indiana because they're 1-2 hour drive away. So I've been to so many different games, from when they were in the finals just last year to when I was a kid, and it was like, I don't know, Danny Granger and company. So I got a love for that city.
All right. I have a good one for you about becoming a Minnesota Timberwolves and a Lynx fans. When your Bulls, by the way, different division, so
Yes.
we can be your Western team.
Alex, we're locked in, man.
Okay.
You trade for Ayo Dosunmu, I'm there. Like,
All
that's
right.
my guy. And we've had the pleasure of interviewing Anthony Edwards before. I've interviewed Nas Reed, Jaden McDaniel. So, like, I have, like, they may not remember those interviews, but I do. They meant the world to me. I'm 100% y'all in my Western Conference team this season. And in my office, somebody, maybe you can find it on YouTube, I have an Afisa Collier jersey on my chair that I sit in. That's my WNBA go. So, like, I'm kind of already in Minnesota, if you think about it.
She would be
There
a great
you go.
interview for you. Yep.
I would love it.
Yeah, legit. All right, Kenny Beecham, you're a champ. Thank you so much. This was
Thank you,
really,
guys.
really fun. Thanks for spending time with us, and just can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you so much.
Thank you.